Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander's Core studio. Welcome to the show. So, on today's episode, we're going to be digging into a trend that might be concerning for some. Others might not see it to be concerning at all, but regardless of, well, what side of that you are on, it is a trend that you definitely have to deal with in Magic moving forward, and things are getting pretty crazy. Let's jump into it. So, Mark Rosewater, the head designer at Wizards, also known as Morrow, has a blog known as Blogatog, and sometimes there's some very interesting discussions that go on there. Let's jump into this one with a question from JKrill72. I think that's probably how that is, or JCRill72, not sure. Anyways, I'll highlight Mark's part actually because it makes it a little easier for people to see the differences, because sometimes on Blogatog it's just a bit hard. Okay, so the first part is from JKrill. Hello, I'm just wondering if there has been much, if any, discussion on product exhaustion inside HQ. We broke 2,000 unique cards in 2024 for the first time ever, and regardless of people's positions on the types of products, I see a lot of agreement from all with the, quote, I just can't keep up feeling. Is this a concern? So that was the question from JKrill. Morrow's response was, 2024 had 9 main products, 2025 has 7, we're making less. Okay, so this kind of, this entire thing, actually, I didn't realize that we actually finally broke 2,000 unique cards. Not surprising that that actually happened, because, again, the amount that you have to keep track of these days is just kind of absurd, and it is definitely getting there. Actually, make sure that, yeah, nothing else was said on this one, okay? Anyways, basically, again, 2,000 unique cards is a lot of new information for, well, of course, new players to jump into, but also, yeah, existing players who've been there for a long, long time to keep track of, and to, again, be like, oh, wait, okay, what does that do? What does that one do again? I don't know about you all, but when it comes to playing Commander, it was a bit easier a couple of years ago, and these days it's like, okay, wait, what in the world does that one do again? Or that card, or that card, or that card, or that card? The amount of text that's on cards is more, and the amount of cards that we are getting is more as well. And Morrow's response is, again, all right, it didn't actually kind of address necessarily the concern when it comes to, again, the amount of unique cards. Again, it says the question kind of, was about product exhaustion. Sure, Mark did respond with, something about the products, but not necessarily about the unique cards and just how many we have been getting over the past couple years. And actually, I did a deep dive and got, a nice little chart for you all to see kind of just where we are at. But yeah, things are exponentially growing when it comes to the amount of things that Magic players have to pay attention to. When it comes to things they have to pay attention to as well, again, Morrow, sometimes with these responses, I do appreciate that Mark Rosewater actually does respond to the community and does communicate with the community. There are times, though, where I don't appreciate the somewhat dismissive nature of Morrow's responses to player concerns, as well as the kind of avoiding the actual question in some ways and just kind of brushing it off in some ways, which this does seem like that to me. It's like, okay, here's like the canned response of, no, you shouldn't be exhausted because next year, we have less products, potentially. Less main products. Main is the key word. Again, 2024 had 9 main products. 2025 has 7. That, of course, doesn't include, all the excess products that are made, like, Secret Lairs. We'll talk about that here in a second as well. But yeah, when it comes to the actual amount of things that have been coming out, the numbers have been increasing, and the amount of cards, especially, have been increasing as well. I came back into Magic a couple of years ago. But I think all Magic players kind of take breaks, right? But, I came back into Magic, and the amount of cards that were in Magic at that time, we'll go through those years, weren't all that different than when I left Magic many years before that. But these days, things have been increasing so quickly. The amount of cards that are in all formats, and now the amount of cards that are going to be in Standard next year with 6 sets in Standard versus the usual 4, it's more things that people have to pay attention to. More products to be able to pay attention to. More cards to be able to pay attention to. And again, the amount of cognitive load is pretty crazy, and the amount of changes that people have to make with their decks for, rotating formats is pretty crazy as well. Or for Commander players, the amount of things you have to pay attention to when it comes to new cards your other players at the table might be playing with. Okay, what is that? What is that? What is that? There's a lot going on. There is the famous, let's see if I have this pulled up correctly. There is the famous, 30 years of Magic products when it comes to actual products themselves, a nice little chart to see, how crazy things have gotten over the past 6 or 7 years. But this doesn't necessarily even show the full picture of it. Yeah, this shows the products. Again, things, from 93 to around 2008, it was like at the most maybe 6 products in a year. Next year, we've got 7 main products, right? Down from 9 this year, apparently. But yeah, when it comes to like the extra products, if we look, all the way up until, around 2018, I think it looks like. That's when things really got especially crazy and then really skyrocketed, of course, into 2020. And then, of course, this only goes up to 2022, and maybe there's an updated version somewhere, but yeah, things are even crazier again with secret layers and all the excess products that we are getting these days. So, the amount of products themselves, yes, have been increasing, but when it comes to, again, the question that J-Krill had, actually bringing up the number of unique cards, which, again, I did not realize, 2,000, last year we finally broke that. Where have we been over the past couple of years? Let's just take a trip down memory lane, all right? So, Scryfall, thank you very much for existing. You're amazing. If you never use Scryfall, use it. It's a great resource. Year 2024, not a reprint. So cards from this year that are not a reprint. Very correct, J-Krill. We are at 2,060 new cards last year, which again is pretty crazy for Magic, which has been around for a long, long, long time, and we're printing, like the amount of cards in 1 year that we had for the first 5 years of Magic, essentially. Let's go back in increments of 5, though, essentially, and just see. I guess increments of 4 to start, then 5. But yeah, basically every 5 years where we were at, so where we might be next year again, which I assume would be over 2,000 if Mark Rosewater was not responding to that, question and being like, don't worry about it. We know how many unique cards we have this year, and we're going to be decreasing that for players, cognitive loads, as well as, things you have to keep track of or keep up with. That was not addressed. No, it was the products that were addressed, essentially. But yeah, back in 2020, the year of Commander, as they called it, I believe, down to 1,203 cards. So a massive drop, again, or a massive increase, I should say, over the past 4 years, where we went from a little over 1,000 cards, essentially, a more manageable amount at the time, I guess. Still not manageable compared to previous years of that, though. All the way up to now, where it's nearly twice as many cards that we are getting, again, in a 4-year period. Wizards has really, put the foot on the gas and just kind of, gone all the way. I guess, the brakes are probably broken on the vehicle at this point, basically, is kind of the, what it was happening with Wizards and them printing a lot of things and making a lot of things. Again, not just the amount of products, but the amount of cards. Moving back 5 more years to 2015, we've got 863. So again, what is that, 3/4 of essentially the 2020 amount? Still, again, within a reasonable difference, comparatively to these days. But yeah, you go back less than 10 years ago, and we had less than half as many new cards being printed in a year. Less than half as many things that you had to, learn, pay attention to, adjust your decks with, etc., etc., etc. 2010, we go back even further, if I can hit this properly. 689 cards, and we'll see that around this number, actually, not to spoil things really all that much, but around this number actually is kind of around where Magic had been for a long time. I stopped playing Magic, I believe, right before this era. I played Magic before this, back in Odyssey, essentially, is when I started, Onslaught Odyssey, and then I stopped with, I think it was Mirrodin. But basically, again, that was kind of the amount that I was used to. And then I came back, I think it was Khans of Tarkir. But yeah, okay, slightly more with that, but not all that much more. Again, 700 or so to 900 or so. And then these days, again, we have twice as many. And again, it's kind of been creeping up more and more and more and more and more. So we shall see where we are at next year. 2005, again, 604. So again, the differences in 5-year gaps are definitely less and less and less cards. There are not as many card differences between the two. Their amount of unique cards each year doesn't fluctuate all that much in a 5-year span versus, again, 2020 to 2024 with a massive gap of over 800 cards, essentially, again, nearly doubling where things were at. Going down to 2000, then 596. Again, the amount of differences between these years is not that much. Again, 10, 20, 30 cards or whatever it is. Again, things were around this amount for a long time. And players were able, to the most part, keep up. I'm sure there were some articles back then wow, the jump. Okay, 1995, though, go back 5 more years is the last time we're getting there. 464 cards. So again, the amount of jumps that we had back then, again, we're between 400 to maybe 800 or so cards in a really long period. Again, 1995 all the way to 2015, we went up like, okay, like, yeah, 400 to 500 to like 800 to 900, okay? And now all of a sudden, in a 10-year period between 2015 and 2025, which I'm assuming we're going to be up there at 2000 again, we have more than double the amount of cards that we are getting every single year. That is a lot for players to keep up with, a lot for players to, again, who want to stay invested in the game, to feel like, yeah, again, for certain formats, like, you got to keep up by adjusting your decks with some new cards, because Wizards keeps with the power creep, printing new cards that you kind of have for certain formats to actually compete. So for those formats, yeah, I mean, Commander, it's a bit different when it comes to, like, you don't have to always update your decks, right? Like, I mean, it depends on your group, it depends on what kind of, you know, power level you might be playing and that kind of stuff, but you shouldn't feel pressure in Commander really to have to adjust your decks all the time. There's certain decks I haven't touched in years, essentially, but still, when it comes to the cognitive load of playing a Commander game now, you've got to pay attention to a lot of things, because when you sit down at a table, the other players might have updated their decks recently, and they've got a lot of cards, essentially, that, again, now we've got, you know, nearly 30,000 cards in Magic, a lot of things to keep track of, a lot of new things. Okay, wait, what does that do again? Oh, what does that do? What does that one do? Even in Commander, again, a format where things don't rotate, you know, there is still a giant impact to the amount of cards that are coming out each and every single year, the amount of relevant things that players have to keep track of. And now, again, this next year, something that Wizards, again, Mark Rosewater did not say in this statement, again, kind of, if you know, product exhaustion, you know, people have to keep track of things, essentially. I can't keep up feeling. There are, instead of being 4 standard sets, right, they're going to be 6 next year. And that's why, you know, with the Universes Beyond ones, those are actually being forced into standard as well. So again, that is, you know, the new cards, the new unique cards, the products, you know, the things that you have to pay attention to. There's a lot more these days. Now, really quick, my handy dandy, very, very, very impressive slide. Look at that. Wow, my goodness. Yeah, unique cards by year. Okay, so on the left side, we've got the unique cards. On the bottom, we've got the year. So you can see this trend gets, again, pretty crazy at a certain point. But when it started off, like, things were very slow. Things were, you know, a slow uptick, kind of year over year, if you just draw a through line, right? From 1993 when it started, essentially, all the way up to, I mean, things didn't really get crazy until, I guess, things started really going up, essentially, once you hit, like, 2020 or 2015, but not really. Like, once you finally hit, like, around here, like, you know, this, like, 1,000 card mark, things just went crazy over the past couple of years. Just a giant jump between, what, 2020 and 2021, you know, from around, like, you know, 1,200 cards all the way up to, you know, 1,800, whatever that is, almost hitting 2,000 in 2022. Would that be 2023, going down a little bit, but then back up, and then over 2,000 finally last year. So yeah, again, things have been jumping, things have been going crazy. And with Mark Rosewater not exactly answering the question, really, not addressing the unique cards in that statement, I don't think we're getting a decrease of cards next year. In fact, there's probably even more, because now we've got 2 more sets that are relevant again, 2 more sets that are forced into a format that is used to having less sets. So we're going to be having more unique cards in those, not necessarily just like, oh, a bunch of reprints in here. No, I would assume we have a lot of unique cards coming our way next year. And again, many players out there do enjoy that. But I think, again, the feeling of a lot of people in the community is it's a lot to keep up with. It's impossible to keep up with. I mean, I do this for a living. I talk about Magic cards every single day. And there are plenty of cards out there that I'm like, wait, what is that again? Like, what? I can't keep up. I literally cannot keep up. And like during spoiler seasons, I am trying my best to stay on top of everything. But there are so many unique cards that it is very, very difficult for, again, even someone as invested as I am to keep up. So yeah, just like a typical Magic player not be able to keep up. Yeah, completely understandable with that. And when it comes to kind of these responses from Morrow, again, I do appreciate that Morrow is willing to interact with the community. I don't know if it'd be better or worse if Wizards just in general did not interact with the community at all and just like didn't try to kind of hide behind certain things when it comes to that, you know, because some good decisions that they make, you know, aren't nearly all that player focused or, you know, nice for players. And some of the things that they do, again, when they have these kinds of responses, it's like I do appreciate that Mark Rosewater is responding, but I don't necessarily appreciate, again, kind of being, I mean, to me, dismissive, like not even like saying like, you know, that is this a concern? basically them just saying, like, oh, like, here's my answer, not acknowledging that players can, have that I just can't keep up feeling, like being concerned about that. It's like, no, like we're making less things. Don't worry about it. Like, just don't worry about it. And not even talking about the unique cards. Yeah, I just don't necessarily appreciate that. And this isn't the first time. Again, I do appreciate that Mark Rosewater does respond in some ways. And we do get some insights into some things. But again, the kind of dismissive nature sometimes, as well as not being dishonest, but not being entirely honest. Like, what was the one? This other Blogger Talk post really quick. Back in, I think this was October, before it was announced that the Universes Beyond sets next year would be going into standard, etc., etc., etc. This is from Vlad Devere. My apologies for the mispronunciation, I'm sure. I know that not every set is for me, and I get that a lot of people are excited for Marvel Universes Beyond card sets, but I can't help but feel sad that Magic seemingly has so little faith with its brand identity that it chose to borrow other brands to sell cards. This isn't a new concept. I thought I'd make my peace with UB, but seeing so much hype around Marvel cards when there's so many Magic characters we could be excited for, I guess it just leaves me feeling the game I fell in love with is gone. This is a feeling, this is a sentiment that many players out there have felt. Again, like this plus product, fatigue times unique cards. There's a lot of things happening as to why many players feel like they either can't keep up or Magic just isn't for them anymore. Definitely understandable. The response, again, from Morrow, again, like, isn't, I'm not going to say, like, dishonest, but again, like, isn't necessarily maybe addressing certain things, and again, doesn't actually, or we'll get to that here in a second, okay? We're making lots and lots of cards within Magic Universe characters. If that's what excites you, we're making more of that than in the history of the game. It's not a sign of little faith. We have huge faith. We just announced the new Netflix series. Universes Beyond is an additive thing. Universes Beyond is an additive thing. Additive. We have the best game system. We want more people experiencing it, so we're letting people get introduced through characters they love and are familiar with. The Universe Beyond has been wildly successful. A lot of players are getting to experience Magic for the first time, and fans of Magic are also getting to enjoy mixing characters and worlds. They love the Magic mechanics. It's not as if one has to take away from the other. One of the strengths of a trading card game is its customizability. There we go. It allows each person to play with what they love most. Okay. So again, Universes Beyond is an additive thing, is what Mark said back in October before it was announced that, again, Universes Beyond is going into standard and being kind of forced into those kinds of formats as well. There is no avoiding Universes Beyond, essentially. No matter what format you are playing, there's literally no avoiding it these days, like, at all. Unless you're playing Cube, basically, is the only way to actually avoid Universes Beyond if you don't want to play with those things. Again, calling it an additive thing, I think, is being disingenuous, is not being completely honest, because at this time, when Mark Rosewater knew that it was going to be going into, again, basically all formats and kind of forced into those, not being entirely honest about that and responding in a way that, again, to me seems very dismissive of, oh, you shouldn't be worrying about this because, hey, you can play things however you want to play them, but you really can't. Again, these days, if you want to play standard, you have to go through Universes Beyond. If you want to play standard now, these days, again, you have to pay attention to more and more and more products, and again, more and more and more cards. Again, you have to adjust things more often. You've got to update your deck more often. You've got to buy more things more often, and you've got to keep track of, again, even if you're playing a format like Commander that does not rotate, you've got to keep track of so many different things. The cognitive load of the game. Players out there, just feel like they can't keep up. They can't keep up with products. They can't keep up with what's going on. They can't keep up with, I mean, again, there have been products that I'm like, wait, that was a product that happened? Where did those cards come from? And again, I do this every day. I look through cards every single day, and I can't keep up either. But yeah, 2,000 cards in a year when, again, just 4 years ago, we had nearly half that many, and then we're doubling it. And things aren't slowing down anytime soon. Again, I appreciate that Mark Rosewater does respond in some ways, but also I don't appreciate sometimes it just seeming dismissive and as well as not entirely honest or forthright, I would say. So again, this is an issue that I definitely see, that I agree with from J. Krill, again, that there is a lot of not just product fatigue, but like the I can't keep up feeling. Again, having so many unique cards, so many new things, it's just very tough for the average Magic player, or basically any Magic player, to really keep up with. But again, I'd love to hear from all of you in the comments what your thoughts are on this. What do you all think about, all of this, that chart that I showed as well, when it comes to the amount of cards that are coming out each year. I think it's pretty crazy as well. Let me know your thoughts are on all this in the comments below. Thanks again. And hopefully, maybe things will slow down in the near future. No idea. Probably not. And with that, this episode is coming to a close. Comment below with your thoughts on it. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.